Hello, everybody. This is Edward Caulfield from Serious About Service. Thank you for joining us today as we speak with Dr. Janelle Barlow. Janelle has been deeply immersed in the field of service for 30 years, gradually moving from service excellence to today's topic, branded customer service. She's a speaker, a businesswoman, and the author of the best-selling book, A Complaint is a Gift, available in 2 editions, the most recent just released a year ago. She's also the co-author of Branded Customer Service, The New Competitive Edge, which we'll be discussing today. Janelle makes the point that it's not just best-in-class service, but service that is aligned with an organization's brand promise that can differentiate an organization and its products and services in a world overloaded with consumer choices. She and her company, TMI US, have worked with dozens of companies, helping them to define their customer service experience and then partnering with them to better engage both their staff and their customers. Janelle will quickly point out that branded customer service work is really about creating an organizational culture that reflects the brand. When that is accomplished, then the organization is much more likely to deliver the promise it makes with its brand. These questions are topics she deals with on a daily basis in the 2 companies she runs in the United States, TMI US and TAC USA. Janelle, to start things off, could you please give everyone a quick summary of what the difference is between delivering high-quality customer service and branded customer service?
Thank you, Edward, and welcome to everybody as well. I want to actually, even before I answer that question, I just want to share something that I just read on the web, a study by Catalina Marketing. And what they said is that half of the average brands in this past year have lost substantial portions of their most loyal customers. And that's really scary for brands. What they said was that if a brand is going to create loyal customers as opposed to habitual customers, and there's a difference, that primarily have to focus on emotions. Brands are all about emotions, and that's where loyalty gets formed. Habits get formed because of price, because of location, because of convenience, and all of those sorts of things. But a loyal on-brand or loyal branded customer is somebody who's really emotionally engaged with the brand. So what's the difference between branded service and just regular service?
And we're not talking about good service versus bad service, because
that's right. Yeah, good service can actually be off-brand. For example, if your brand is all about speed, take something as simple as that. You know, we will offer to our customers the fastest service possible, but that for some people, that may be too fast, and so you begin to slow down. Now that's good service, to slow down to accommodate that person, but at that moment you've walked into off-brand, and anybody else who's trying to get your help and sees that you're slow, they immediately see that that brand promise is not being met. So it's a it's a fine line that has to be, you know, it's a little needle that has to be threaded here. How do you maintain the promise that you're making and at the same time satisfy your customers? And one of the things that has to be taken into consideration is that you're not going to please all customers. If you attempt to be a strong brand, you simply are not going to please all of your customers. So you have to decide, what is it that my marketplace of customers are likely to want, and then position your brand in that, or whatever you're passionate about. That's where a lot of good brands come from, is passion from somebody. And then make sure that you deliver that. What brands are is, I make a promise and then I deliver. Unfortunately, that doesn't happen all that often.
Oh, we've only seen thousands of examples in our lifetimes.
Yeah. You know, I think Bob has got a really good example about Disney. Bob, do you want to give that example?
Bob, could you introduce yourself, just so we know who you are?
I'm Bob Branson. I'm with TAC USA, associated with Janelle and the branded customer service process, which I really, truly believe in. And maybe later in this presentation I can explain to you why it is so powerful. But we're talking about on-brand behaviors, and I think Disneyland or Disney World is probably one of the best examples. They are absolute experts at creating an on-brand experience for their customers. And Michael Eisner, who used to be the CEO of Disney, there's a quote from him that I love, and he says that a brand is a living entity. It is enriched or undermined over time, the product of 1,000 small gestures. And I think the key here is 1,000 small gestures. And Disneyland, they are experts at creating those gestures, and beyond just providing good service, they provide their customers an experience at Disneyland. And I'll give you an example of that. They actually, their employees, they don't even call them employees, they call them cast members. Their job is to create an experience for all the children and even the adults that go there. And I took my son there. This was a lot of years ago, and he was 4 years old. And Disney actually communicated their brand to my 4-year-old son, and they made sure that he actually understood their brand. And he had been there about 2 or 3 days. Now, I had not told him anything about Disneyland. I mean, their brand is magical, fun, safe place for kids. At least that's the way I understand it. That was communicated to him through 1,000 small gestures over a period of days. And I knew that because I took him into a haunted house, and it was a really good haunted house. We went inside into sort of where all the guests met together, and then we all had to get into this big elevator. And as the elevator lowered us down into the really scary dungeon, there were paintings on the walls of the elevator that you could look at, and they were smiling, happy characters. Well, as the elevator began to descend, these smiling, happy characters turned to mean-looking beasts, and they started saying scary things. And we weren't expecting that. This was all occurring in the elevator. And when we got to the bottom of the dungeon, I looked at my son, and tears were coming down from his eyes. And I said, Gregory, what's the matter? And he looked at me, and he says, Daddy, this is Disneyland. They're not supposed to scare little kids. Well, that's what I would call an off-brand behavior for Disneyland. And most of the behaviors you will see, the thousands of behaviors you'll see at Disneyland, are on-brand. But they had communicated what their brand was, a fun, safe place for kids, so well to my 4-year-old son. He understood their brand. He knew when they were off-brand. You know?
Interesting.
Yeah. That's such a great example. That's not Bill's. That's not Bob's kid, incidentally. It's just another photograph. If we want to put a little bit of structure to this, this is the way that we look at brands and strategy in the customer experience. You start off with a brand as a business strategy. It's your purpose. So, you know, it's not just a marketing tool, which is what an awful lot of people think it is. So you have to define what that business strategy and that purpose is. And it needs to be unique. This is really critical in terms of the experience. And that's why people who go around and copy each other's service, I think, run into some real difficulties here, because you really end up with something that looks the same. I've been long convinced that if you went into most of the hotels in the world, just take them at the different levels at which they operate, like a really expensive hotel, and if you were to swap staff from one very expensive hotel, let's say Four Seasons, to a Mandarin Oriental hotel, and you made sure that they understood how the hotels operated, and then you sent the customers in, I don't think the customers would be able to tell a difference in terms of how the staff behaved. Pretty much all these people behave like high-end hoteliers, and they're not really living, they're not really delivering a unique promise for what that brand is all about.
Well, what they are delivering is a market requirement, right? They're saying at this market level, here's the entry criteria for this market.
Right, that's right. They are doing that. And I can't tell you how many people have said to me, oh, we offer branded service. And I say, well, what's the brand of your service? And they say, well, it's really good service. And I say, but that's not branded service, that's just really good service. So how is it branded? And then they say, but it's really good service. And they just keep repeating themselves. And they don't quite get it. There has to be something that is, has some sort of an emotional connection that will engage, that will create this relationship, because we've got to build relationships as opposed to habits.